First, I want to thank the County Museum and its Executive Director, Veronica Huddleston, for hosting this local authors and meet and greet, and also inviting me to speak. I wrote out the talk, so I was discouraged by rambling, I hope. I'm going to talk about this book, Place Names of Kankakee County. Museum published it in 2018, and it hasn't exactly been flying off the shelves, but it's been steady. So I thought I would just discuss a little bit about place names, what you can learn from looking at them, and then a little bit about the book, and depending on time, that's right at the end. If I have more time, I can talk about some other things too. The place names of Kankakee County, spoken in our everyday speech, may appear to carry little or no significance beyond serving as labels of the places they describe. Just a name, most people will say, just a name. Yet no name is a mere label, for, so to speak, meaningfulness has always been right there before our eyes or our ears, hidden in plain view. As I have learned from my research for this book, a quantity of things can be learned about our area from an examination of its place names. Place names may give information about the landscape in former times. For example, of a prairie that is now agricultural land, or a wetland now draining. Place names may point to the area's original Indian inhabitants, or commemorate some of the area's earliest white settlers. Place names may indicate the source of a community's population, or reveal something about the ideals and culture of the people. Once we cease to think of names of places as mere labels, and begin to see them as having cultural and historical meaning, we add meaning to those labels and make our homes become more interesting places in which to live. Much of the information in this book is available elsewhere, although widely scattered. So one of my aims in compiling this book of Kankakee County place names was to bring all that information together in one place. Mark, I thought we finished your book. I said, do you read a dictionary from cover to cover? It's a reference book. You check out it occasionally. You might find something you read for a while. It might be in the bathroom, but your bathroom book. You don't read it cover to cover. Well, that's what he did. So I can see why he was just exhausted. You don't read a dictionary that way. It's a reference book. If you want to read it cover to cover, be my guest. I have attempted to make sure of my facts. I do not knowingly repeat old errors from previous books. But I make no claim that my work is perfectly free of mistakes, and so I am unable to adopt a cheerful attitude of infallibility. Just can't go that far. The plan of the book is simple. There's an introduction, an alphabetical listing of place names of Kankakee County, a bibliography, and an index. It is customary to think of place names as layers on the land. And so the introduction discusses the various layers of Kankakee County place names and shows how each layer, particularly names and particular names and naming practices, will be found revealing characteristics of the landscape or reflecting the character of different peoples residing there. Kind of like this. As rock strata record their geological past, so place names record the human past. The text consists of an alphabetical listing of place names of Kankakee County. Each entry in the list attempts to give the source or origin of those names, why the name was chosen, and the identity of the name giver, if known. In many instances, this information is not known because it has not been preserved. The entries include names of incorporated and unincorporated communities, townships, some post offices. The Postal Service played a significant role in place naming. Some railroad stations and sidings, some natural features of water and land like streams, islands, hills, groves, some trails, roads, parks, and preserves. The list also contains places that have disappeared or names no longer in use. Some places I have omitted because I could find no information on them, others I may have overlooked. The extensive bibliography lists the books, archival material, atlases, newspaper stories, microfilm, internet searches, and personal communications used in preparing the book. My research took me to the State Archives and the Lincoln Presidential Library, both in Springfield, and to the National Archives in Chicago. But most of my research was done in Kankakee County. This dictionary of place names could not have been compiled without the help of the staff of the Milner Memorial Library at Kankakee Community College, the Reps Department of the Kankakee Public Library, and the staff members at the Kankakee County Museum. In compiling this book, I also owe a great debt of gratitude to the work of local historians Vic Johnson, Jim Ridings, and Jack Lacey. Their contributions to the study of our local history I found most helpful. In addition to the introduction and list of place name entries, the book has an index of personal names of individuals appearing in the place name section of the book. So if you want to find, maybe you had an ancestor who came here and was one of the first settlers of a community, you can find that name in the index of the book. Otherwise, look for the place names, you just find them alphabetical. That. I'm trying to save time here.
Okay.
I guess I'll tell a couple stories about my research, some of the things that I encountered. One of the books that I consulted frequently during the research was Of the People, the history book written by Jack Lacey and Mary Jean Hood. I was trying to find information about easy way bumps. Many of you have heard of that name.
I did know.
When I was in high school, my high school chums and I would talk about it. We lived in Bradley, so to come over to Kankakee was quite an adventure. So at the time we could drive cars, we'd take easy way bumps, which was a road, actually it's Main Avenue. What an exciting name. Main Avenue in Kankakee on the west side of town. I think the name comes from the railroad tracks. There are several tracks there, but also the road used to have a swell and swale kind of topography. Those swell and swale things have been smoothed out in recent resurfacing. But still, as high school teenagers, we used to like to go on that road fast because you could get airborne if you're doing it right. But I never saw the name in print. I always thought it was spelled E-A-S-Y, W-A-Y, Easy Way. So I thought, how can I put that in the book? I can't find anything about it. Well, as I learned, what you do not take the trouble to look for, you're not likely to find. In conversations with Jack Lacey, who was my editor for this book, he encouraged me to consider including easy way bumps. I told him I'd never seen the name in print. Jack gently directed my attention to the pages in Of the People where easy way bumps is mentioned. Well, that's in the latter part of the book. I was interested when I was doing my research in the 19th century. So I was reading the first several chapters of the book, focused on that. The latter part of the chapters in the book Of the People were in the 20th century, and about how many communities were being established in the 20th century in Kankakee County. Very few. So I didn't read those chapters as closely. So when Jack said it's on pages 224 and 225, I turned to the page and there it was. Easy Way Bumps and also Easiest Way Stoveworks, which is where the name came from. So, for my defense, in addition to not examining the second part of the book as carefully as I should have, I do note that the 1968 edition of the book, the index, is very skimpy. For various reasons, mostly cost, when the book was published, they had to keep the cost down somehow, so they kind of skimped on the index. So you will not find in the 1968 edition, in the index, Easy Way Bumps, Easiest Way Stoveworks, no. You have to read the whole page, whole book, and find it. But in the year 2012, another edition of the book was reissued. And in that is a very extensive index. And there you will find listed Easy Way Bumps and also Easiest Way Stoveworks, which makes it a lot easier to find. So that's my excuse for not finding it the first time. For what it's worth. Another example I have of a story behind a name was the name of Sumner Township. It's between Manteno and Grand Park, one of the townships in our county. Well, before I did the research, Sumner Township, it's another name, it's another name, so what? Well, there's a big story behind that name. In the 1850s, there was ever-growing danger of disunion with the American Union. The issue of slavery. An abolitionist U.S. senator by the name of Charles Sumner delivered a ferocious anti-slavery speech to the Senate May 19, 1856, bitterly criticizing a U.S. senator from South Carolina. 2 days later, Sumner was brutally caned on the Senate floor by pro-slavery U.S. Representative Preston Brooks from South Carolina. You think we have trouble with politics now? Wow. And the floor of the Senate, the man was caned. He almost died. He almost got killed by that. Mr. Sumner became a national hero to many anti-slavery Northerners, who, by the way, also were quite divided on that issue. The North was not all against slavery, but many were. All right, now we go from the national to the local. In 1855, a new township in Kankakee County was carved from Momence Township. The new township took the name Union, probably for the American Union of the States. But in June of 1856, remember the caning took place that year in May, the Township Board of Supervisors was approached by early settlers of the township, James McKinstry and Elisha Buck, both from Vermont. They suggested to the board that the township name be changed to Sumner in honor of U.S. Senator Charles Sumner. The board unanimously agreed to the change. So, for me, just another name now has a history to it, meaning. It makes my living in this county all the more interesting. You can find that kind of stuff by researching names. I guess I'll one more and I'll wrap it up. I got interested in the name of Sherburne. Sherburville is a little unincorporated settlement in the northeast part of the county. East of Grand Park. I couldn't find anything about the name except Frank Love, in his history of Sherburne, which appears in the Yellowhead Township history, writes that one of his informants remembered her grandmother, a lifelong resident of Sherburville, telling her, the informant, that the community was named from an old hymn sung in the local church in the early settlement days. Love records that unfortunately the granddaughter could not remember the name of her hymn. That piece of information led me on a search, where I actually found there is a hymn tune by the name Sherburne, published in 1785 by American composer, New Englander Daniel Reed. Reed named his hymn tunes after New England townships. Sherbert is Reed's musical setting of the English carol while shepherds watch their flocks by night. The tune was immensely popular from the 1790s on, appearing in print 70 times before 1810. I also learned that further attesting to its widespread popularity, the settlers of Sherburne Township, New York, were in the habit of singing Sherburne at their township meetings, and named their township in 1792 for the tune. I think my explanation makes a lot of sense. Again, I can't say for sure. My book is littered with possibly, probably, perhaps, and that's one of them. But I think I make a pretty good case, and that's probably where the name came from. So throughout the book, I sought to show how place names, be they odd, colorful, or just mundane, reflect the cultural and historical experiences of the people of Kankakee County. My aim in compiling this study of place names, then, has been to offer a reference book that is concise, informative, and as accurate as possible, based on my research into many sources. My hope is that the book will be for anyone interested in Kankakee County history, geography, and culture, or for anyone who simply wonders, why did they name it that? I enjoyed putting the book together, and I hope that other people can find it enjoyable as well. So I'll conclude my remarks on that, but I'll just say in passing, again, this is available at the museum store. And I think the price is very reasonable. Quickly, I developed this little thing on the back of an old envelope, a little pamphlet that, again, Jack Lacey helped me lay it out, offer some very helpful suggestions. I've kept, maybe you have too, I don't know, probably something that's dying out, fading away, just like handwriting is going away. Envelopes, letters, huh? Well, for a long time, I used the back of envelopes to write things down. Envelopes that have gone through the post, and not a new envelope, the old ones. You know, I take to the back and write, phone names. Somebody gives you a phone number, I write it down. Of course, nobody does that anymore. They have one on the phone. Names and addresses, maybe driving directions. Maybe I came across a word in my reading that I wasn't sure what jotted down. So I had these envelopes, scribbled notes in the back. Well, imagine my delight when I came across an article entitled BOAOE, which means back of an old envelope, by Irish comic writer Flann O'Brien. Flann O'Brien lived from 1911 to 1966. In that article, he discusses writing on the backs of old envelopes. I said, that's in my territory. The article appears in his book, The Hair of the Dog Bond. He had 3 other volumes on with this. So from reading O'Brien's BOAOE, I thought, I'll start collecting these. Anytime I see a reference, either I hear it, or somebody, a piece of thing I read, it could be an article, a magazine, a newspaper, a book, or someone talks about using the back of a little envelope to jot down notes, I made note of that. Piece of scratch paper, and sometimes even the back of a little envelope. And I tossed them into a folder and kept them. After a while, I said, I think I got enough here to maybe put something together. Kind of a little booklet. That's what this is. It's a collection of references to writing on the back of a little envelope, from anything from literature, Emily Dickinson would write in the back of an envelope. She'd get, a piece of mail, she'd keep the envelope, slit it open it up, use it as a writing paper. Because in those days, paper was kind of expensive. So she would use that, very thrifty, to make notes, maybe write a rough graphical poem on it. That's just one example of literature. One of my favorites that I came across was by a scientist named Charles Towns, who was responsible for, among other things, the development of the laser. And he records in the back of a whole envelope. He was at a conference in Washington, D.C. for another unrelated thing. But he was thinking about this thing, this project, he was working with some other scientists on lasers. He got up early in the morning in D.C., walked out to a park, sat down in the park, was thinking about this problem. And suddenly it came to him what he needed to do. He took out an envelope from his shirt pocket and started jotting down on the envelope. He said, "You talk about a stereotype. That's what, books, magazines, movies like to say. A scientist was using an envelope to write down his thing." Wait till he actually did it. So that's another thing you'll find. It's just a collection. It's a lot of fun. If you want to pick one up, the price you can't beat it. It's free. It's not part of your extra. You won't need to take it. Thank you.
May we ask a question?
Of course.
Or make comments?
Comments or both?
I find information that you use about Sumner Township quite interesting. I got your book, but I missed checking that because I don't have a reason to. But just another bit of information. The Republican Party was formed in 1856. It held its, I bet the board members were from Vermont, going to be in that party, or they were already. The first state convention, Illinois State Convention, was in Bloomington. And George Letourneau attended that convention because Noel Vassar couldn't go for some reason, business or whatever. And so he heard Abraham Lincoln give the so-called lost speech, where supposedly he gave a speech about a house divided against itself cannot stand, and everybody was so awestruck that they didn't write any notes down. Well, he was the person that seemed to be the nominee for the Republican presidential candidate at the National Convention, which was later that year, but General Fremont was picked, and he wasn't. But it's interesting, in Kankakee County, the Republican Party was anti-slavery, the moderate Republicans like Abraham Lincoln. Then there were the radical Republicans, also called the black Republicans because they were abolitionists. So the two people from Vermont, I wonder what they were.
I wonder.
It so fits into what this county was back at that time period. It was what's been Republican all this time, it seems, except for a little period, I guess it wasn't. But from the beginning it was Republican, but the Republican Party was different than the Republican Party today.
It's changed, sure. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, I'd like to know, those two fellows, what their take was on slavery.
And Sherburville has the oldest church structure of any church in Kankakee County.
Yeah, but I always like driving through that. We had, somebody's able to get to 65 to go south, we go through Sherburville. I still like driving through there.
It's 2 years before maternity, whatever maternity is. It's
That's
a little structure, a little church.
Well, St. Leo's Chapel was 1841, but of course that's gone. The Stone Church, I think, is 1858.
It's supposed to be 2 years before maternity.
Well, it was pretty early, we know that much, early, very early.
Little dinky town, yeah. That's right near Mini Monesk Golf Course.
Yeah.
Out there.
I just certainly was.
And you were talking about the Easy Way Bumps Road, this is my book.
It's all lines in there.
Why is it in there? You must have memories of driving it too.
Yeah. It tells about my early life. We moved to a home on the Easy Way Bumps Road. I always like saying Easy Way Bumps Road. It just brings a smile to your face.
It's a great name, I love it. I'm so glad that Jack encouraged me to include it in the book, and I did the research, not much, I found what I needed.
Yeah.
And it's just fun to have it in there.
Yeah. And it was named after the factory. Because they made easy way stoves.
Easy A wet S,
And then-
Easy S, EST Stove Works.
And then after that, it became Florence Stove Company for a
Right.
number of years, and after that, it became Roper Stove Company.
What the company, yeah. I think it, probably what happens with names, like anywhere, it's too hard to say easiest way bumps. So it's over, people just drop, oh, it's just easy way bumps.
And we used to sit out in the front porch and watch the cars go over the bumps at night.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while, we'd have to go in and dial the phone and call the sheriff department because somebody hit the tree out there.
Thank goodness it never happened to us.
A lot of wrecks on that road.
Teenagers, we were
Yeah.
stupid drivers. Yes.
I have a memory of the easy way bumps. When I was a kid, on Sunday, we would, after lunch, a lot of times we'd go for a ride, a car ride, and that was the favorite place to go. And I'd sit in the back and, faster, Daddy, faster.
Yeah.
And my
No
dad-
seatbelts, it was the
So like I
seat
say, my boy-
right on the ceiling.
Here's what I got, just to, since we're on the subject. Despite name changes to the factory, Easy Est Way Stove Works, later Florence Stove Company, finally George D. Roper Corporation, despite the closing of the factory in the 1980s and its demolition in 2017, despite the elimination of the bumps, the Easy Way Bumps name persists.
Good.